most of us don't enter romantic relationships for the reasons we think we do. And if we're honest, many of the reasons that we choose someone may make us suffer later on in the relationship. Today, I want to talk about the 7 wrong reasons we enter into romantic relationships. And I promise you, if you have been in a relationship in your past, chances are you've done one of these 7. Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of 12 published books, including The Empowered Divine Feminine, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman in the 21st Century and Beyond. You can find all of my published books on Amazon and 10 of them on Ingram Spark. And in fact, in chapter 6 of this book is where you can find the 7 wrong reasons to enter into a relationship. If you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you here. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do tarot readings. I teach meditation online. You can check out all of that on my website, michellefondinauthor.com. So if you missed my Michelle Fondin Author vlog number 29 that I posted earlier this week, if you are viewing this on January 23rd of 2026, I will post that link here because these 2 videos are very interrelated. And I gave you a little bit of my story and how I constantly chose the wrong romantic relationships because my reasons were wrong. I chose out of the wrong reasons. So you can view that after this video. If you're single and looking for a relationship, or maybe you're already in a romantic relationship, but you've been dissatisfied for quite some time, and you really weren't conscious of the reasons why you chose that relationship, you might want to really listen to this and maybe go over each of the 7 again and again, just to pinpoint your reasons why you choose relationships. So number 1 is the someday person. Someday. This is when you fall in love with someone's potential rather than what is actually going on in reality. This is so important because oftentimes when we meet someone and we have that physical attraction, that chemistry, and we really like the person, maybe their personality is great, but at that first meeting, they say something to you like, I've been planning on going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And they really emphasize this point, and they're really super convincing, but they may be 40 years old and they're working at a gas station. And while there's nothing wrong with that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is they are emphasizing that they plan on going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And maybe this is a story that they have been telling themselves for decades, maybe since they exited college or high school. And that is problematic because a lot of people will fall in love with potential, like they are going to be X, Y, or Z. Another example is if a person never works out a day in their life and you really want a workout buddy in your relationship, or you exercise a lot and you really want someone who exercises as well, and they're sitting in front of you and they're saying, I plan on joining a gym next month and I'm going to work out 3 days a week for 30 minutes each. That is falling in love again with potential. It's like they are planning on doing something in the future, but they never quite get around to it. And so what happens in that relationship, if you actually get into a relationship with that person, is that you start to tell their story to other people. So you're kind of justifying being with this person, not saying they work in a gas station, but saying they plan on going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And that becomes your story, which is their story, which they're never fulfilling. And that really sets you up for a life of disappointment. Because if someone is not doing something, actually doing something now, then they're probably not going to do it unless there are mitigating circumstances that they are lined up. For example, if the law school thing is they've already been accepted into law school and they're just waiting for the fall semester to start. That's a great example of someone who's actually taking action to move toward their goal. Number 2 is pretty closely related, but not exactly related, right? The first one is the person who is enamored with their own fantasy, right? Their own fantasy future, but they have never done it, and it looks like they might never do it. So they're just telling the same story over and over and over again. I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to weigh 100 pounds less, or I'm going to stop working at this job and get a better job, or I'm going to move out of my hometown. But as time has moved forward, they just don't do anything. The second one is the wishful thinker. The wishful thinker is when someone is constantly giving you words, maybe not even related to them, right? It could be related to something else, like your relationship. So the wishful thinker is all words and no action. All words and no action. So for example, if they say to you, let's date, let's be together, we'll have a date night every Friday night. And then you find that they don't really follow through with that date every Friday night. It might be every third Friday night. Or they might say to you, yes, I will join your volleyball league because I know you like playing volleyball on Thursday nights and it's a co-ed team. So I'll show up to your volleyball league with you, and that could maybe replace our date night, or we can do something together. We can do something you enjoy together. And they keep saying like, yeah, let's meet Thursday night. And then they just never do it. So they're all words, no action. A lot of this happens with a person who is a fast talker, who is charming, who is really convincing. And they might not necessarily be insincere, but sometimes they're really insincere. But they're just saying to you, like, I will take you to Paris and we'll go to the moon and I love you so much and you're the best person in the whole world. And so they tell you what you actually want to hear, but they're not following through with any of those actions, or they're not following through with all the actions, maybe just very, very, very few. Now, again, these first two can be kind of tied together. While the first one is more limited to their life's aspiration and goals, the second one, the one who is the wishful thinker, is someone who is saying these beautiful things that you might want to hear, but not following through. So you really want to pay more attention to their actions rather than their words. Because love is about consistency. It's not about the beautiful words all the time. Number 3 is what I called in my book, the one song wonder. And I don't know, maybe the metaphor isn't great, but this actually happened in one of my romantic relationships in the past, where a person had had some great success in the past. So maybe in their early 20s, they were really successful with a particular career. Maybe they got some awards. Something wonderful happened in their life. And then circumstances changed. They stopped doing the thing that they were doing. They're no longer popular or a great musician or a great business person. Maybe they lost their business. And it's not that you're ultra focused on achievements as the only way to be in a relationship. It's not that. But it's someone who is living in the past, really trying to fluff up or pump up a distant memory of a distant success. And so what ends up happening with this person is that they are always living in the past, their past glory. Maybe they were a great surfer until they were 25 and they won all kinds of awards, but they got injured and they've never gone back onto a surfboard. And so now they just keep talking about it again and again and again and again, showing you pictures of how they were a great surfer, showing you their medals or showing you all their accomplishments. But the development was completely arrested when they stopped. And so they're not living in the present moment and adapting to the current situation that they're in and trying to make the best of their life in the life that they are in now. They haven't matured, right? That shows a lack of emotional development and emotional maturity. And so that's a huge red flag to not be in a relationship with a person who is the one-hit wonder or who is constantly living in the past, because chances are they're stuck in that stage of development in the past. And so if you get into a relationship with them, you're going to somehow not be good enough because you are reminding them of the present moment and not reminding them of their past glory. And so they're never quite satisfied because they're not there. They're here in the present, but they're just not embracing the present moment. Number 4 is the fixer-upper relationship. The fixer-upper relationship is exactly as it sounds. You enter into a relationship with someone who might have an addiction, who might have a mental illness, a mental disease, a mental illness, something that they're struggling with, that they're dealing with, maybe even a health issue that they're dealing with. And you swoop in to fix them up, right? This is a highly codependent relationship. And as many of you know, I was in this situation a couple of times, but most notably with a person who was an alcoholic. And so when you're in that type of fixer-upper relationship, you place all of the focus on them and their lives and trying to fix them up, trying to repair what's wrong, coming in almost like a nurse or like a mother or some other type of role, but you come in to fix the situation. Now, oftentimes this comes from a place of very low self-esteem and self-worth. And it also comes from a place of, like I said, intense codependency where you really don't want to take a look at your issues and why you have low self-esteem. And so then you place all of your focus in that relationship on the other person to try to fix them. That never, ever, ever, ever works. A person who is dealing with some sort of issue like an addiction or a mental disease, they have to fix themselves first. No one else can fix them. They may need some help from mental health facilities, from 12-step groups, but you as their lover, as their relationship person is not the person to fix them. Number 5 is a slight deviation from the fixer-upper relationship. It is what I call the wounded bird. Now, a lot of sitcoms talk about this. A lot of sitcoms, from Friends to Seinfeld to How I Met Your Mother. There are so many sitcoms that talk about the wounded bird. What the wounded bird is the person who is recently out of a breakup, separation, divorce, maybe their spouse died, and they are hurting, lonely, and emotionally wounded. And you swoop in to pick them back up from their despair, from their brokenness, out of that failed relationship, or maybe the death of a loved one, a spouse or something. And the reason I say so many sitcoms joke about this, because they do, right? They usually joke about, oh, if you really like this person, wait till they're out of the relationship, then you're going to come in and rescue them. You'll be the rescue person, right? And it winds up they're usually the rebound person. But when you come in to a relationship, a new relationship, and you are fixing the wounded bird, you become their mother or father, their therapist, you become their nurse, you become their servant, their caterer, right? You're making them food, maybe. You're becoming their friend, maybe their lover. But when they're all fixed up, when their wounds are gone and they've healed from that relationship, then usually they're wanting to move on because you are not the person they want. They don't want necessarily that person that was there when they were wounded, because you're going to remind them of that spot of when they are wounded. Another thing is that it creates an enormous imbalance in that power dynamic where you have all the power over them, right? Because they're wounded and you're fixing them and you're turning them into someone who is strong and lovable and can be loved, right? So it's not an authentic relationship. It's based on a power dynamic that is wrong, meaning you have all the power, they have none of the power, you're helping them gain the power, but once they have their power, they're going to leave you because they don't want to be reminded of that scenario. And so the only way you could stay in the relationship, which is really bad, right, would be to keep them wounded, to keep them down. That is completely messed up and wrong. But a lot of people do this, right? A lot of people want to be the rebound person. A lot of people want to be the one to swoop in and rescue that wounded bird out of their failed marriage, their failed relationship. Wrong. That is personally one of my things why I will not date someone who is separated. I might date someone who is divorced, but they really need to be well past their divorce. I'm talking 2 to 3 years minimum, because I know I've been there. I was recently divorced a long time ago, but I know what it was like. And I told the story in my vlog number 29, what I did when I was newly separated. So I know, believe me. Number 6 is a fallacy that many women fall into. I know men do this too, but it's more women than men that tend to do this. And number 6 is, my love will change them. My love, my nurturing, my affection, my sexiness, my prettiness will change them. A lot of people, like I said, especially women, fall into this category where they find someone, a romantic interest, that is maybe 50 or 60% of what they want, what they desire. And they really, truly believe that the other 40% can be changed through loving the person. I'll tell you right now, that never works. It creates a lot of tension, stress, heartbreak, and heartache on both parties. How many women enter into a relationship with a man, for example, who does not want to have children, and they want to have children, but they really believe because he loves me, he'll change his mind, right? A lot of women do that. And I would say now, ladies, that is completely the wrong reason. You do not want to enter into a relationship like that. In fact, it would be entering into a relationship based on a lie, really, because your agenda is one thing, their agenda is another thing. And being manipulative or sneaky by thinking you can change them is the wrong reason to enter into a relationship. So loving a person is never going to make them want to change. Them feeling your love is never going to make them want to change. A person only changes because they have the intrinsic motivation that they want to change themselves. And that may or may not happen. So it would be a huge gamble, especially if there's something really important, like I don't want to date smokers, but this guy smokes. Everything else about him is peachy keen, hunky-dory, but he smokes, and I hate smokers, and I hate the fact that people smoke, and I don't like the way it smells, and it bothers me a lot. So you enter into this relationship hoping your love will change this person from smoking. Again, not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. So try not to think that love will change things, because generally speaking, it really won't. Number 7 is something that happens more often than you think. And it's probably one of the most tragic, to be honest. And it's what I call Yay! They love me. Okay, that might sound harmless, right? But let me dive deep into this. The desperation that comes from dating, the fatigue that comes from dating, the desire to no longer be single because you are fed up from dating apps and the dating process and trying to find somebody can lead you to this sense of, really, the only word that comes to mind is desperation. And it typically also comes from pretty low self-esteem and pretty low self-worth, right? Because if you're settling, right, that's kind of not loving yourself in a big way. So when you get to the point at which you're just done, you're done dating, you're exasperated, you're exhausted, you're fatigued, you don't want to do it anymore, and someone comes in who declares their love for you, and they're attentive, and they're kind, and they're generous, and they're nice, and they say they want to be with you forever, but really, if you're honest with yourself, you're not too hot on them. You're not excited. You're not passionate. You don't think they're the one. But here they are, declaring their love, dedication, and commitment to you. And they're showing you through actions that they're really going to do it, that they're really going to be there. And you cave in and you settle because you're like, yay, they love me. Finally, someone who loves me. Again, I know it sounds harmless, but it's actually really the wrong reason to enter into a romantic relationship. It's disastrous because being a coach, I would say relationship coach, I'm kind of sort of a relationship coach doing tarot readings, astrology readings, and helping people, especially in their romance through that. I hear this so often. I hear it so often, and that's usually the conundrum of breaking up versus not breaking up. The excuse I hear is this number 7 excuse. They're in the relationship. They may have been dating this person for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years, and they get to this point where they realize, I'm with the wrong person. I don't feel the same way about this person as they feel for me. But they're having such a hard time because they're like, well, this person loves me. They're attentive. They show me they love me. They do all the gestures to show their appreciation, but it's just not clicking, right? So just not clicking is you settling because another person loves you, and that comes from this act of desperation. It comes from this fatigue of being single, this fatigue of not wanting to be alone anymore. But it's still, number 7 is still the wrong reason to get into a romantic relationship. To be honest, when you get into a romantic relationship that feels good on all levels, then it's going to feel good to both people on all levels, not just one person. And it's going to be a more or less even power dynamic. So it's not about one person trying to fix the other or overpower the other. It's really going to be an even power dynamic, and that's really going to feel good on the inside. And that's when you know that you're aligned with someone, right? There's a common thread in all of these 7 wrong reasons to enter into a relationship. And the common thread is the focus is on the other person and it's not on yourself. When you learn to love yourself unconditionally, you will then learn how to receive. And that is definitely one of the points that I outline in my upcoming book, Love Me Unconditionally, a spiritual guide to self-love. And that's something that many, many people overlook. They overlook the fact that what matters to you is important to you. What really matters at your core, what you truly desire in a relationship, is important. The focus should not be on the other person, and they will let you know what they desire as well, right? But you're never going to morph them into what you want, fix them into what you want, or convince them into what you want. They have their own wants, needs, and desires, just as you have your own wants, needs, and desires. So if you find yourself gravitating toward one of these patterns, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It might mean that you just need to do a little bit more self-love work before choosing. And then when you feel that unconditional love for yourself, you'll be able to choose better for you. The work isn't about finding the right person. The work is about finding wholeness within yourself. And from that place of wholeness, the relationships that you choose will feel very different from the inside. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Make sure to click on the bell, put a comment in the comment section below, give the video a thumbs up, engage and share with others who might be single and trying to choose a relationship, but are having a difficult time of it. Thank you for your support of my published work. You can purchase one of my 12 published books. You can go on my website and check out my courses there. Thanks for joining me again, and I will see you in the next video.